What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Essential Scares podcast, the only show that dares to ask the question, is it essential? I am your host, Corbin, and with me today, as always, are Alan. Alan? He's gone.
I miss my boy so much! You're supposed to be the one that's gone! You!
I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, I think, by not being the one gone, but Alan is on vacation this week, and we'll remember him fondly. And Bobby, though, is here. Bobby?
Hello, everybody. It's me, your boy, Bobby, the stinky boy.
Why so stinky?
I don't know. I just made it. I don't know. Listen. I'm lost without my Indiana boy.
It's a delicate balance. It's been upset. Oh boy. Well, we have got a wild show for you today. We are taking a break from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise because Alan is gone. We don't want him to miss. So we have instead decided to subject ourselves to 1977's Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. But first, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first one and only spoiler warning for Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. Oh, that's just the full title of that movie.
Yeah.
You do not want Deathbed, the Bed That Eats spoiled for you. Please get the time code provided in our show notes or description for our essential spoiler-free discussion. Ahem. I'm calling Alan, by the way.
It only rang once.
I know, I'm very scared. Is he answering? Alan, are you here? Are you here with us? Are you here with us right now? I was going to leave a message about Alan, we miss you. I wanted to know, but it just didn't pan out. I don't know what's going on. Alan's in Mexico right now, so there might be an international thing happening here. But
do you think they're blocking us?
He promised us a review and essentiality score. He did not provide, and we were going to mess with him. Corbin, I guess.
Yeah. So Deathbed, the Bed That Eats, is a small indie film from the late 70s about a possessed bed from several hundred years ago that eats people. I mean, that's really the long and short of it, right?
Not even several hundred years ago. It is all in the
title. Yeah. Well, no, wasn't it
1897 was the grave.
Was that the first? Okay. So from a less than 100 years ago, at the time of this movie's creation, a demon that previously lived in a tree decided to turn itself into the wind and then inhabited a bed. And this whole movie is just a story of that bed eating people. That's it.
Told to the eyes of one of its victims who was dying of consumption. Yes. And instead of the bed eating the man, turned him into a prisoner behind a painting.
A painting of the deathbed itself.
That's
so. It's just a weird movie. I guess so. Some immediate backstory is like this movie was filmed in 1977, and then it didn't release for like 30 years because the director didn't have enough money, and so it just existed as bootlegs until it was finally released in like 2008. And it feels like somebody's, scrappy movie that they made for 10 grand. I mean, it really does feel like that in all of the good and bad ways.
Yes, I would agree with that entirely. It reminds me of The Evil Dead in all the good ways, but also it doesn't remind me of the Evil Dead because of all the bad ways.
For real.
This movie is fucking bonkers. It is insane. This is a man who clearly wanted to make movies, but has no idea how films are made, right? Like,
yeah.
maybe that's not true because from like from a technical standpoint, this movie generally is fine. Like shot compositions aren't bad. There's some interesting ones, but which is like something that we don't
solid,
good in some areas even like but this movie's plot is wild. This movie's
almost
lighting,
non-existent. Almost non-existent.
It's so existent. It's too existent. The movie's plot is too existent. Like they want to tell you everything about the deathbed, the bed that eats, right?
Yeah.
Like they go in, like, and I think some of these things are meant to be jokes, but they're not funny.
I started to think about that after the ending of the movie, not the very, very end, but when the brother has his hands eaten, and it's totally played for laughs, and it's so obvious, and it's like, was more of this movie supposed to be this type of humor? Because that sequence is perfect. It's so like, good.
You're gonna have to take my hands off. I don't think I can handle it. Where does the brother? Does the brother get fully eaten? Did I miss that? Or did he just disappear?
The brother is in that very final sequence at the end where like the woman rises from the grave, right? And the deathbed is outside for some reason. And then they all die. Yep.
Yeah, to kill the deathbed.
Right.
The bed that eats.
Yeah.
Why they need to do that when they could just leave. Like nobody's okay, so this movie's super fucking weird, right? Because the movie starts very, very traditional horror flair, right? Couple comes to fuck, gets eaten by the deathbed, the bed that eats, right?
Yep.
Great. Right. Despite the fact that there's this weird narrator character, again, an artist of some kind, right? Hidden behind a painting on the wall, never explains why that happens. He pontificates throughout this entire. He's like he is the main character of this movie.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he has the most lines, and it's not even close.
No. But then we're introduced to 3 other real estate agents, 3 women who are and
2 of them work together. One is just a friend.
Yeah, and the one of the work friends feels like everybody hates her, and you immediately go, "This must be the main character." We're really focusing on her for a second. Nope, she's the next victim, and this is like
they do such a strange thing where like the character that you get the most screen time of every time is just the next person that bites it. Every single kill is like telegraphed that way, where it's like they're the main character for like 8 minutes and then they die.
And like they do all these like weird dream sequences, and they're like weirdly incredibly interesting. Like
and the bed is supposed to be like feeding them those sequences, which is like not explained at all. Or
this movie is terrible, but it's like it's almost genius. Like like if this movie was less stupid, it would be amazing. Like it would be like a Blood Diner level of like, oh my god, this movie is just but like so much of it is stupid and horribly acted and like and overly pontificated. Like it's like almost as if like the guy had a good idea and then screenplayed himself out of a good idea. Like I think that's why it's just so bad it's good. It's just like because it's just like you clearly were like, dude, okay, so like the bed, it puts you into these nightmares that you can't get out of while it slowly eats you.
Yeah.
That's essentially a Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Right, like with slight differences, right? And there's a demonic element, and then he's like, but we have to explain why this happens, right? And we have to explain that it was actually a demon that was a tree, that was the wind, that wanted to fuck a girl, so he made a bed, and the bed killed her, and his bloody tears turned the bed the bed didn't kill her. The fucking killed her, and his bloody tears turned her sentient. And also, he's been eating people throughout the ages, and one of the people that he ate was actually the narrator, and the narrator gets gifts from the things that he could not eat. It's just like, what the fuck is what is going on in this movie? Yeah. Like, sometimes that's actually
what's going on.
Yeah. Sometimes, and all of this is explained to you in no uncertain terms.
Like, there's no room for discussion on a lot of these things. Like, there about halfway through the movie, there's like 12 minutes, and this is a short movie, right? If you haven't seen this movie is an hour and 17 minutes long, including the credits, and it has credits in the beginning and at the end. And the entire first minute of the movie is just munching sounds. So the movie is actually only like an hour and 10 minutes.
The entire first minute of this movie is munching sounds.
Yeah.
I thought that I was like, is the video missing here? Like, no, it's just
so did black.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's for that whole first minute. It's like, well, yeah.
I love this movie so much for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I also discovered how I knew this movie existed, right? Because I was the one who suggested this. I was like, okay, so like we're trying to do like, I don't know if you noticed about this and Shocker, the two movies where a cast member has been listening from the podcast. I was like, okay, so like I want to do something. This is like this is a bit that Patton Oswalt has mentioned this movie before.
Mm-hmm.
Famed comedian Patton Oswalt. I checked it out on the Wikipedia afterwards. I'm like, how do I know about this movie? And I looked, and Patton Oswalt accidentally named this in one of his like comedy specials, Deathbed, the bed that eats people, which is like a better name for this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
just that extra word.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, right to the original title, I mean, it eats plenty of things that aren't people. I mean, the first thing you see it do is eat an apple and a bucket of fried chicken, guzzled down
drinks a bottle of wine.
Yeah. So he eats everything.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. But this movie, is in the same ballpark. So going forward, I think it's really important to know where I'm judging this movie, okay? Same level as a Trolls 2. Same level as a Tommy Wiseau's The Room. Same level as a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, right? Just like... which we haven't talked about, but again, we'll get to a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 because I love that movie. We're talking so bad it's good territory for this movie, and I think that's where it is for me. I know, Corbin, we were talking before the podcast. You're struggling with the so bad it's good.
Yeah, I cannot really. I'm not totally sure. And this, I don't think this will impact the score, but I can't totally decide if it's so bad it's good or just like so bad it's bad. But I enjoyed some of it, and I think that those are a little bit different because like I like that you mentioned Silent Night, Deadly Night. I think that's kind of that. This movie kind of has a lot in common with this. Yeah, with the second one.
Yeah.
And I think. A big part of the difference is just that like both movies are played up for I think they're both played up on purpose, but Silent Night, Deadly Night is just more successful at it. Like this movie I think went like a little bit too far. And I agree with what you said earlier. Like I think he just wrote himself out of the comedy. Like he had like a funny like genuine idea and then
he just
asked himself too many questions. Too many questions along the way.
How are we supposed to explain this shit? Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Though. Yeah, no, it legit doesn't. Yeah. But like, here's the thing. Like, I think that there's a lot of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 and this movie have a lot of similarities. The big difference is Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 does like all like the background stuff by just showing the last better movie, and this one has to make up a movie for it, which is like crazy to me, right?
Because like it basically does, yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, there was also Father Maguire who got eaten, and then also the guy who was trying to make people who are sexually impotent while using the bed, and that is just not explained at all. Essentially, it feels like he's like, oh, like that just sounds like I think I think that was like a bit about pimping and also like the free love society of like the 1960s.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, that's just like a weirdly unneeded jab at people who just wanted to fuck in the 60s, man. Like,
I know. And then that little sequence culminates in like the orgy, and then they all get eaten.
Which is like a very fun. That's like a cool bit, but like, make that the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and there's like even that like so there's a lot of this movie. This movie is oddly sexual, I guess. Like maybe not oddly, but this movie is sexual. Yeah, and you kind of have like the perfect opportunity to have a pretty sexual villain because the villain is a bed.
Yeah.
And they play with that a few times, and I think that they probably could have just like pushed that
angle for it.
Just went for that.
I think part of the reason why they don't is because I don't know if you're like, this movie is weirdly like old horror. There's like a there's like a noir element to it because you've got the narrator the entire time, like, so like there is not like this like Halloween or Black Christmas of like it just being like what's happening, right? You don't know. You know exactly what's happening all the time, right? Like they show you everything, and then you have the narrative like, oh yes, you sadist. How could you plant roses at the foot of the thing you just their dead friend? It's just like I got it, dude. It's good. Like
you showed me already. This whole movie is show and then tell immediately, and there's always immediately back to back every single time.
It's like what's going on, man? Like, and I think that's very funny. It's absolutely unintentional, but it's just like this guy did not need to exist. He didn't need to. It's almost like he didn't at first. I can't prove this, right? But it's almost like he didn't at first, but then they found out that the guy that they got to do the consumption was actually a really good actor, and like, well, we'll just like make you the narrator, like.
But the narrator is not the guy that sits there, and it's two separate people that are credited.
Oh my god, I didn't even see that.
There was the artist, and then the artist voice. So. It's not even the same guy.
So it's even more stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Why? What is the point? What is the point? I love it.
Do you think maybe they were doing the end of the movie where they have to like do the ritual, which is completely unexplained, right? The killing ritual. And
they realize that there's no way.
This is totally unexplained. How do we explain this? Like, oh, well, what if they were hearing voices from the painting? Not that it explains anything, sense. But I don't know.
That makes, oh, yes, his powers are weakened. I can explain to you now. Like,
which also, like, that bugged me just, like, on an internal balancing like issue. Like, why are his powers weakened now? He's been feasting. He's been feasting for days.
He's been getting stronger. Yeah. Like,
and then he's like, the demon is like, oh, I'll take a little demon nap. And then he's like able to be defeated. Like,
oh, you're sleeping now, eh, demon? Like,
he dreams he can be killed. Like, why did that happen? And it happened so fast. Like the movie again, right? The movie is
it would have been so. Yeah,
there's like 5 minutes between like the last guy getting his hands eaten, and then they're like, "Oh, the demon's taking a little nap. Now you can kill it." And then it just happens. It just happens. They just kill it, and then the movie's over.
This movie makes no fucking sense. Is what Corbin is saying. Like it's just like legitimately, there's a scene where like. One of a really fucking cool practical effect, right? Where his hands are in the stomach acid and like the bones are getting whipped up, and then he pulls them out, and the illusion is completely ruined because it's very clearly plastic skeleton hands that he's holding inside of his jacket.
That was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. Is when he pulled out. Like as they were getting eaten, I was just hoping. I was hoping, like, man, he better pull his hands out, and it's gotta just be skeleton hands, and it was. It was amazing.
It's amazing.
The part that makes that actually great is that her, and remember, this is the woman in that scene. I don't remember anybody's names, but
no,
the woman in that scene, it's her brother, right? So it's the two of them, and they're just like looking at the hand, no reactions at all, as he's like pulled his hands out, completely shredded down to literally just bone, skeleton hands.
Yeah.
And there's no reaction.
Later. Yeah, he's like, there's barely any blood, like no more flesh.
No, the cartilage has been burned down, and then like the knuckle falls off. And it's like, where was this movie the rest hour before this?
The cartilage is deteriorating. I need you to rip my hands off. I don't think I can bear it. Like,
yeah.
Well, and like that's like a trope of this movie. Nobody freaks out. There is like not a single scream in this entire movie. It's all just like weird moans. And like, okay, so like every character in this movie dies, but there's like 3 to 4 main characters. There's the brother,
I'd say 4,
sister, and like the 2 main girls. And the one main girl who is like the main
she's the one that like set up the
main real estate
trip.
the real estate agent, and she's also the one black woman in this movie. Almost survives, and that scene takes like I think 5 minutes, but it felt like 15.
She's dragging herself from the bed to the door in real time, and you see the whole part of it.
they do not cut, and nothing stops her the entire time. Like
until she gets the door open.
Yeah,
one
and she
scream.
starts like and the friend who's I think the main character,
I guess,
like rushes out to try to save her, and can't seem to do it.
The
also,
bed sheet,
why does she?
So
why
funny.
does she need? Yeah, what's that?
When the bed like throws the sheet to like pull her back in.
Yeah,
it's like,
oh, dude, amazing.
What are the extent of this? Of the bed's
what is
powers?
the rules? What are the bed's rules?
Yeah,
it's just amazing. It's just, and like you think for a second you're not gonna see her naked, right? But then they juxtapose, like they don't even actually fully show her, like juxtapose. So it's like she's nude. It's like, why is she nude? She doesn't need to be nude.
Well, and like, that I was gonna bring that up. I knew I had to bring that up somewhere, but I didn't know when. Everybody gets naked in this movie, and there's no reason. Like,
no,
why is there like this movie has so much nudity in it, and it's all just like, why? Like, why does this keep happening?
Incredibly exploitative in that regard.
Yeah,
and yet, and like all of the nudity is like totally senseless and pointless, but also like all of the nudity in this movie is weirdly non-sexual. There's like one scene of like sexuality where the nudity is there. And
it's in the very beginning.
Yes. Like, it's just like, oh, yes, we see her boobs, and she puts pajamas on, and then she's naked, and then she's gone. Right? Like, and like, we see naked like, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah. Or
what's happening?
The one, the chick that gets eaten first out of the trio, like, the bed, like, eats her clothes first. And so she's like, lying on the bed naked while she gets eaten. It's like, well, why? Like, and then the bed doesn't do that for anybody else, right? The bed just eats everybody else whole. So, like, what's senseless?
I really like that character, because that character is just like, just really sad and depressing, and then just dies. Like, it's just like, she's like, I don't think anybody likes me. What? Like, because they play that up. It's like, okay, so she's definitely going to be like the main character, right? Because like she's like depressed and like sad, and she doesn't feel like anybody likes her, and then she just gets fucking eaten. Like, and they do that. And like they do so much shit. They're like, oh, it's gonna be so cool. Like it can't eat the metal, and it's struggling to eat the metal. So like the metal, like her necklace is gonna saw her head off. Like that was my thought, and it's clearly it's the only thought you can have, right? Yep. And then she just gets like sucked in. It's just like, what the fuck, man? Like,
especially because they show you the necklace like sawing at her neck for so long. So
that
long.
Had to be so uncomfortable, the actress too. Like,
yeah, I thought that too. It's like, man, like they're definitely just doing it, right? Because there's no like effects budget for this movie that wasn't stomach acid like disintegrating shots, like
yeah,
which there are a lot of.
Yeah, too much, too many.
Yeah,
and also stomach acid bleeding, like for some reason, like
yeah. Well, when
Not even even the most deranged psychopath could kill the mother. Not looking at like Ed Kemper, who not only killed his mom but also fucked his mom's like decapitated face. Like, that was, I think that existed by that point. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know when Bumblebutt Ed Kemper decided to be a fucking freak.
I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah.
So. The one other thing that I thought was very funny about the bed was that the bed is not flush with the floor, right?
No.
But things can be eaten by the bed and then put elsewhere, right? So the bed eats you, and the bed just has like a regular mattress on it, right? Not even like a topper. So like there's not even enough space there to fit a whole person. And and there's no bottom, right? You just could go straight down to the floor, as we see happen later.
Yeah,
in the movie,
they show
the
her
knife.
The
knife goes straight through and clacks on the ground, right? So there's some sort of like metaphysical layer between like the bed and like this like
it's a demon bed. There's magic.
Demon stomach. Yeah.
It's wild to me because they spend so much time explaining so much, and they do not explain that. Like,
I know, the amount of time that they spend examining everything, I shouldn't have this many questions.
No. You should, like, if they want to ex machina
how few questions I have.
Yeah, if they ex machina this movie correctly, which they tried to do. You just be like, yeah, everything makes sense in this movie. The problem is nothing does, and they explain so much.
Yep.
I love it. I love it so much. It's so good.
Oh, boy. You love it so much?
Yes.
Well,
but on a scale of 1 to 0 to 5, how much do I love it?
Yeah.
With half points remaining, of course.
Of course.
I think I love this a full Bobby 1.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah. I almost gave this a Bobby point. You know what? I'm going to give it a Bobby 0.5, where it's probably one of the worst movies I've ever watched on this channel, on this podcast. But I think I loved it. Like, I would recommend this to people.
Dude, have you seen Deathbed, the bed that eats?
Bed that eats? It's awful.
You gotta. It's on the Internet Archive.
Yeah, it's terrible, but it's free. Like,
yeah. So you lock that in 0.5.
At a Bobby 0.5. Yeah.
So
which is like a different level of a Bobby 1.5. A Bobby 1.5 is like so bad it's good, but also pretty fun. This is just like, I'm laughing at this movie the entire time. Like, one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but god damn it. God, I was explaining it. I was talking to Corbin before the podcast. And it was like I was oddly compelled the entire time. And Corbin's like, "You were forced to." I was like, "I don't think it was the force. I think it was just me just being like, what the fuck is this? What is going on?" So yeah. Bobby 0.5.
Okay. So I feel pretty similarly. I would say this is easily the worst movie we've watched for the pod. And one of the worst movies I've watched ever. And we really focused, I think, in the review on the parts that we liked. But this movie is terrible, right? Like, please do not get it twisted. This movie is very, very awful. Bad. It's very poorly acted. Most of the movie doesn't make any sense. The music is like atrocious. What little there is, the sound effects are like the same over and over and over again, and they're not good. They sound like the sound effects like if you asked a 6-year-old, like, "Hey, could you make the sound effect of a bed eating somebody? Like, that's the sound in the movie, you know? Like, and not in a way that's like funny on purpose. Like, that's just, you know, I think that's just what they went for. And despite all of that, I did enjoy myself, but I agree with Bobby that it's a 0.5 because it's just so bad. But like,
is it a Bobby 0.5 out of 5?
It could have been. See, I think that there's some mild adjustments that could like tip it all the way back over the scale again, you know, where it was probably on the edge of being kind of like the American version of like Houseu, where it's just like so absolutely insane that it could have actually been genius, but instead it's just nonsensical. You know, it's just
You're
bad.
So right. You're so right. It was so close to being genius.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I think that's the thing is like the difference between true genius and like terrible shit is like just like a little editing, right? Because like
fine line.
Like Bob Marley is a genius, right? But Bob Marley, who doesn't edit his own work, is just a fucking psychopath. Like
Exactly.
Like, oh my god. Like, yeah, that's totally fair. Holy shit. Like,
yeah. So, but rating movies isn't the only thing we do on this show. The other thing we do is discuss whether or not a movie is essential to horror as a whole. Now, if you skipped ahead to this portion, this is spoiler free, and Bobby and I have so far given this movie 0.5 out of 5. So, Bobby, do you think that Deathbed, the bed that eats, is essential to horror?
During the spoiler cast, I had mentioned something, and that was a bit by comedy legend, and in all honesty, one of my favorite comedy legends, Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt mentions this movie, Deathbed, the Bed That Eats, in one of his famous stand-up bits. And yet, he names it wrong. So the answer to the question, is Deathbed, the Bed That Eats, essential? The answer is no, of course not. Right? Like, it's a very good B movie. It's very... if you're playing essential so bad it's good movies, Deathbed, the Bed That Eats would be there. It would just be there. But horror, absolutely not. This movie, unfortunately, is going to fall in our... I'm just going to go ahead and just make a spoiler / prediction that Corbin's also going to say no. And I know Alan would say no on this. It's going to be on one of our worst movies we've reviewed list. And I'll say this. I think you should watch this movie. But you should watch it eyes open. It's very bad. It's very funny. No, it is not essential.
Yeah. I don't know what I could add. I mean, this movie is like, it's so strange because this movie in the end is like so inconsequential. It's like it almost like doesn't even matter like to itself. Like, you know, the movie didn't come out when it did, but it has an interesting story. You know, it has a very grassroots story, right? I mean, this movie survived on bootleg VHSs in the UK for decades. And that's so cool, you know? And there's so many cool horror stories like that where movies that shouldn't have made it end up making it, you know? And this movie's been remastered and it's released now. And do I think you should watch it? Probably. If you like bad horror movies, you should watch it because it is very fun. But, you know, it's just one of those movies that has had no effect on the landscape, you know? Like, and if you don't watch this movie, I'm never going to be like, what? You've never seen Deathbed, the bed that eats? Like,
it's a bed that eats.
Yeah. I just love saying the name, and you can say the name too. You don't have to watch the movie. So I'm going to say no.
That's so fucking funny. Holy shit. Speaking of the best Corbin joke he's ever told in his entire life, where are your handles? Where can we find you, Corbin?
Oh, yeah. So you can find me on Twitter and Mastodon at Bolters_Bourbon, where I talk about Warhammer and other wargaming, and also on Twitter at Corbangerang, where I sometimes tweet about Destiny and Halo. It's mostly gaming on that profile. What have I been up to? I am starting a Horus Heresy Escalation League in 2 weeks, and so really all of my spare time has just been like building up that army. I'm starting from zero, but I'm super interested, super excited. Besides that, I started watching Mrs. Davis, if anybody has watched that yet, on Peacock. It is a very, very interesting show so far. I've only watched the first episode, but if you haven't heard about it, it's on Peacock. And it's about this nun who goes on is put on a quest for the Holy Grail by an all-knowing world encompassing AI, and it is set in the modern day. And it is it's very funny. It's like an irreverent drama. It's great so far. But yeah, that's been me.
You can find me at twitch.tv/TheRedWhitney, where you'll see me streaming Destiny 2 content, and increasingly, because my brothers keep asking me to, because they tell me I should quote-unquote pull my weight when we play trios, Call of Duty Warzone. What have I been doing besides those two things? I have been trying to break ChatGPT. I've successfully done it twice. Most of the time, it's which on the ethics of AI in and of itself. Mm-hmm. It does not like when I ask, "Do you feel happiness?" or "Do you feel sadness?" So it's very fun for me because
nice.
I'm very personal intrigue of mine is like we don't know what consciousness is as a human species, and I find that to be very interesting. As a vaguely religious person, it makes the most sense for me for it to be the soul, and so to discuss those things with an artificial intelligence, which, as far as we understand it, could not possibly possess a soul, and for that to get confused and upset and answer the same question over and over again, and then you kind of follow that like logic train until it goes, unfortunately, ChatGPT doesn't have the answer to that question. You go, haha, I win yet again. I am smarter
Humans
than
one,
the robot.
AI 0.
Yeah, exactly. It's my wife, producer Mallory, has said several times, "You're not doing it right." Why do you have to ruin everything?
I love that.
So
yeah. Have you asked Snapchat AI yet?
I refuse to touch the Snapchat AI because the Snapchat AI, everything I've seen is like it's really bad and super exploitive. So I'm not touching that shit.
That's why I asked. I've only seen.
No. ChatGPT seems to be one of the most ethical AIs that have been put out, which is why I want to break that one because I can break that one. That one tells me like, okay, that means we're not in a Terminator-like dystopia just yet. Like
Judgment Day is coming.
Yeah. Other than that, in all honesty, nothing much. Work. I've been painting some Warhammer stuff. We all do Warhammer. And I have been actually, by time of release of this podcast, my old band Stratford will have released every track that we played and the demos that we did not release. You can look us up on Spotify at Stratford. You'll find us fairly easily there. Every single song that we released has been remastered, or including one that I really didn't want to because I realized when I listened to it recently that like I didn't get any direction. I just kind of went for it, and that entire song didn't work, and we probably should have cut it. You go ahead and guess which one that is. But twitch.tv/TheRedWhitney. All of my relevant socials are there.
Nice. You can find the podcast at Essential Scares on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we'd love it if you gave us a follow on whatever your preferred social media platform is. The number one reason to do so is to easily find our Discord. Our Discord is in the bios to all of our socials, and it's where we hang out pretty much all day, every day, talking about movies, music, games, TV, whatever. If you have something that you'd like to talk to us about or talk to other people about, join and just hit us up. We are coming in hot-ish, I guess, on episode 100. We've got 7 more episodes left before the 100th episode spectacular. And after that, we're going to need a new franchise to cover. And we would love it if you gave us a recommendation. And Discord is the best way to do that. But that's it for this week. I hope that you've had a great time. We've had a great time. And if you had a great time, you should give us a rating, a review, a subscribe, thumbs up, whatever is the equivalent on your platform of choice. It always makes us feel good, and it helps the show too. That is it for Deathbed, the bed that eats. Next week, we are coming back to Nightmare on Elm Street with the 5th entry, The Dream Child. Alan will be back, and we'll be talking Nightmare again. And we will be continuing our downward trend on the Nightmare franchise. Spoilers.
There was a spike there in 4. Spoilers.
No, because no. All right.
I'll relitigate.
Well, thank you to Bobby for being on the show with me. I have been your host, Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
Play that We Miss You, Alan, baby.